This podcast provides a platform to discuss important questions and complex issues, challenge the status quo, and confront the boundaries of the establishment. I'm retired police chief Daniel Hahn. I went from being arrested at 16 to serving over 34 years in law enforcement. My goal is to keep you informed with news not being reported, voices not being heard, and the untold history of how we got here so that we can create a way forward. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest on A Way Forward podcast, Merrell Wilson, who has many years of experience in community outreach, mentoring, leadership development with youth, has over 30 years of information technology management experience in the manufacturing and health industry, and 20 years in the United States Navy Reserves and California Army National Guard, and retired as a Master Sergeant. Welcome, Merrell.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Glad
Part
to be
of what
here.
I didn't say is that you have been involved in a specific fraternity for quite some time.
One and only.
Which one would that be?
Kappa Alpha Psi to the day I die.
All
Yo,
right.
baby.
So I wanted to start with, over the last couple of years, and for many, many years before that, but the last couple of years especially, there's been a lot of division, a lot of people in the communities fighting with each other, protests, unrest, and somebody who actually got me into Kappa Alpha Psi. Explain to people what the fraternities in general and even Kappa specifically, in regards to community and education, what role, what benefit do you think they play, and what role do they play?
I think the biggest benefit that they play is the fact that they reach out to folks that are having common interests. We not only we talk about Kappa Alpha Psi being the best of all of them, which it is, but again, we all do the same thing. We all do community outreach where we're trying to go out and educate the public and be support for the public out there for the different things that are going on, whether it's politics, whether it's mentoring young kids, whether it's going into the changing times that things are starting to happen. We as Kappa Alpha Psi don't pick any political type of direction that we go in. Each brother have their own political aspects and so on like that they're involved in. But we try to touch in the community where we can be assistance and help to them. And that consists of sometimes being a link or the conduit to them, like we do with the Kappa Leaguers. We try to bring them out. And my biggest thing when I started the Kappa League program in Roseville.
If you could explain what the Kappa Leaguers are.
Okay, I was going to say. Kappa Leaguers is one of the programs that's underneath Kappa Alpha Psi. It's a guy rights program. And the Kappa Leaguers are where we mentor young men from the ages sometimes from fifth grade all the way up to the time they're graduated from high school. And then it also, too, in Kappa Alpha Psi, we have a couple of programs that goes after they go into college. So that's what it is. It's just mentoring for leadership. That's what the Kappa League program is. And then when I started that program here for our chapter in Roseville, it was basically to see not for these young men to come to be members of Kappa Alpha Psi, but for them to come back in the community and be give back to the community like they see us being mentors to them and give them a little bit of, what the role is to look like, have black men around they didn't see. But, a lot of the young men that's coming through the program before I left Roseville area, I walk down the street, see one of these young men, and they talk about how good that program was for them.
And what would you say is the benefit for not just Kappas, but any fraternity or sorority for a young person going through college? Why should they join a fraternity? I mean, you joined when you were in college, I believe. So what is the benefits to them personally and collectively from being in a fraternity while they go through college?
The benefits, and again, some of this thing that I'll mention here, you can still get that outside of fraternity and so on. But, the biggest thing is once you're into the fraternity, and regardless of what fraternity is, you got that bond and that link. And, it can help you out as far as the benefit goes with jobs, It also helps you out with mentoring, being able to have somebody to if you're a chief of police and somebody that becomes a member of the fraternity and wanted to go into law enforcement, they got that connection with you. And then being a brother and being a part of the fraternity, that helps a lot more because now you can reach out to that person. In the IHQ, the international headquarters, we throw out a broad net to young brothers in the fraternity that are in college, where they can be mentors to somebody like myself in IT. They can link up with me, and then I can be their mentor, and they can shadow me, and I'll help them out in their careers.
Good. So one of the things that I've benefited from being in a Kappa is, in this day and age, in a time of division, there's a lot of times where people are advocating, demanding that you separate from law enforcement, right? You don't talk to law enforcement. There's a lot of people that say abolish law enforcement, defund law enforcement. Yet I know from personal experience, when we had a tragic shooting here in Sacramento, and we're really just initially starting the investigation, but things were getting pretty heated, and protests were getting larger, and at this time where people are dividing away from law enforcement, you and the Kappas, some of the sororities, not because you didn't believe the police department did anything right or did anything wrong, but stood at a press conference with law enforcement, asking for calm protests, for peaceful protests. And I'm just curious why you and the fraternities and sororities did that, because I'm sure it wasn't easy, because at that time it was very divisive. But I know I appreciated it a lot, because I felt that the brothers and the sisters had a lot of influence on the community, because everybody's rooted in the community. And if they saw all of you also calling for calm, that would help. So why I know it wasn't an easy thing, so why do that?
Well, again, this is our community. And then, I think, too, some of the reason, too, we know who was leading, who we're standing up with. We know that there's, as we've seen in Memphis here, we know there's bad cops, but we know there's much more good cops out there. And an example being you, and especially from the environment you came up in the experience you had to get where you are, that made us want to stand up. We wanted our community to reflect the person who was leading it, like you in the police force. And we wanted to let people know, hey, look who we got up front. Let's support him and let him do what he has to do, and we'll back him up all the way. So that's why not only I believe the rest of the brothers and sisters and rest of the sororities and fraternities stood up with you, because they knew who you were, and they knew what you're trying. Where we had in common was our community to be a better community. The things we do as frat and sororities, that's what it's all about, and we knew what you're about. So that's why I believe we all stood tall with you.
Wow. I know I definitely appreciated it. A conversation I had with you probably several years ago, actually, I'll never forget. You had mentioned, I think you even said you had lived in Ferguson. I might have that wrong. But you had talked about this transformation that Ferguson went through. And in case people don't remember, Michael Brown was shot by the police in Ferguson. It's a predominantly black city now with, at least at the time, a predominantly white leadership of the city. But I remember years ago, I hadn't even thought about it. You had told me that Ferguson used to be predominantly white, and it went through this transformation. If you could talk to me about that transformation from what you knew and where it became, and the challenges that created to have a predominantly black community with a predominantly white leadership.
Yeah, you're right. I did live in Ferguson for a short period of time. When I first moved, graduated college, I got a job in St. Louis, Missouri area, Ferguson, in the apartments, the same apartments that Michael Brown was shot in. Matter of fact, the morning that that happened, I believe I was going to either Capital League meeting or either to chapter meeting, and I'm watching CNN, and I had it turned. The television was turned down. I kept seeing these pictures. I go, wow, that looks like the apartments I stayed in. I think it was can't remember the name now, but that I think it was Greenfield or something like that. I go, it looks like that was right outside my balcony. So yes, I did live there, and when I moved there, I believe it was 1977, and it was predominantly white community. And what was starting to happen is you see, as I came back to Sacramento now, you can start seeing revitalization going on downtown Sacramento. That started happening in St. Louis downtown, and it pushed a lot of people out to that community. And
So the whole urban renewal type stuff
exactly
pushed the people that used to live in St. Louis out to places like Ferguson.
Right. And then you know what happens when those things happen, and they start to bring those two oil and water together. Sometimes
One
they don't.
leaf.
Yes, yeah. So it started pushing away, and that's what was starting to happen out there. And it just took to that point where when things started to happen with Michael Brown, you had a community that wasn't represented in politics or in the police force. So that's what started happening out there. What I saw, that's Merrell's opinion on that. So that's what started happening out there.
And so as we, all too often we see on the news and in different various reports, we have communities in every city across this country that are impoverished, oftentimes very diverse, that have been impoverished for decades. So somebody with your experience that's lived literally all over the country and beyond and done various things, been very involved in the community, what do you think as a society we need to be doing to help improve the lives and these communities that are impoverished and improve the lives of the people that live in those communities?
I think about this just last week, and I think day before yesterday, as I was getting dressed, I saw the things that was happening down at the school in Oakland. I'm sure you heard about the young kids that had kids bring them stuff for Black History Month, where they did crayons. Young kids had crayons, drawings. These are young kids.
Oh, no, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, they had drawn pictures of kids to give them cards, and drew a young lady, a young girl, a kid actually, and drew her and had these little things look like clouds, but it was cotton. It was also to another picture of a kid drew of supposed to be their classmates, of them hanging in a tree. Another one was, again, that might not been correct on that, but I'm pretty sure it was it. But the other one was they drew a picture of a kid and supposed to be a monkey, and was supposed to have been that kid representing that. So, a lot of these things you kind of wonder at that age level. I think they were second or third grade kids, because crayons involved in drawing these cards. They were supposed to be making these cards for Black History Month. Where does that come from? We've been fighting this battle so long. I remember another friend of mine, we talked about it, and he was a sheriff, just retired. And we used to talk about it. We said, well, I'm getting tired of education. How much more can we do to educate, But I think that's the biggest thing. I saw, we're at the age now, anything you do, mostly you can get canceled from. And I think that's the way people go. They go to that 360 level, saying, okay, fine, we're just going to cancel everybody. But they cancel, and these people will go to the side, and they still don't learn anything from it. Instead of canceling, I think we should do more education. This show that you have, some of the things I see you got out there, going out, broadcasting, those are the things that people need to pay attention to. And when we start pulling books out of schools and our young kids' schools and stuff, they don't get that history. They don't get to learn what happened there, and that's what we need to do. We need to keep folks educated. They need to learn about the past, so we can't continue, as is famously said, to repeat the past.
Right. So last question I have for you, Merrell, is if somebody has a relative, a child that wants to, that's, you know, high school or middle school, that, you know, you talking about the Kappa Leaguers sparked something in them, regardless of where they live, or if some person is getting ready to go to college and they are interested in joining the Kappas or fraternity, specifically the Kappas, what can they do? How do they get information, or how do they start down that path?
Well, again, you can go. Most chapters they have a website. You can go on the website, and then you go to Kappa Alpha Psi. Kappa Alpha Psi 911.com is our website for the international website. You can get information there. Roseville Alumni Chapter. We have a Roseville Alumni Chapter. If you Google our name, you'll see a number you can call and contact someone for that, not only for membership in the Kappas, our chapter, but also, too, for the Kappa League program. And again, the Kappa League program consists of, we've done things from taking kids to the FBI for tour. We've done things going to ball games. We take them on college tours twice a year. And all this stuff is free. All this stuff for the Kappa Leaguers are free. Not a dime comes out of their pocket. We try to target kids that are trying to develop and become leaders in the community.
So I thought that was going to be the last question, but I actually have one more.
Okay.
You know, for people that are listening that don't know much about fraternities, I was hoping maybe you could just give a little history on why did fraternities like Kappas and others start? Like what was the issue? I know, you know, maybe a little bit about where Kappa started at and why did these organizations come about?
I grew up in Indiana, not too far from Bloomington, Indiana, where our fraternity was founded. I know for a fact why Kappa Alpha Psi started on the campus of Bloomington University, because they couldn't join any other fraternities on that campus.
And why was that?
Because there wasn't any black fraternities on the campus.
Okay.
That's the point. So that's why it started there. And it started with 10 founding fathers, came up with an idea that we'll start a chapter fraternity here. And we're predominantly black fraternity, but we have brothers from all walks of the world, all colors and races and stuff in our fraternity.
So basically they originally started to expand access and fight against segregation and those sort of things where you know, black students weren't allowed to join.
Exactly, and you can imagine in Indiana,
right?
You know, that was a tough toe to pull there at that time. At that time, because again, our fraternity started off with Kappa Alpha Nu. We had to change the Nu to Psi. Mm-hmm. Because brothers running track, they go, oh, there goes those Kappa Alpha ends and that type of stuff. So those are kind of things that we faced back in there. I grew up in a small town in French Lick, Indiana. I was the only black.
That's where Larry Bird grew up, right?
Oh, yeah. Larry Bird grew up there. If you were black at the time I was coming there, you were the only one in your class. Whether you all 12th grade, if you were black, you were the only one in that class. If you were in the first grade, you could have been the only black in the first grade. It's changed some from what I've seen from things I go back and my friends and stuff. But I can tell you one thing: if I had to do it all over again, I'd still want to grow up in French Lick, Indiana. You learn a lot when you're exposed to different cultures. You get to learn about those cultures. So that's
what served you well. You've lived in different places and thrived in.
I tried. I tried.
Well, Merrell, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Daddy, for the opportunity.
One of the big purposes of A Way Forward is to hear different voices and different opinions, because that is how we can make informed decisions ourselves. So if you are someone that would like to come on A Way Forward to express your opinion, go to chiefhahn.com/podcast. chiefhahn.com/podcast. podcast.